Hi, everybody. It's a very exciting day today. I've got Michael Marsalese with me. He is an attorney based out of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and he's been a Whiteglove host here for a few years now. So he's going to talk a bit about his experience with seminars, webinars, and he's even going to talk a bit about something that's been helping take his events to the next level recently and kind of over the years. So be sure to stick around to the end to hear that one out. But figure we can just take it away. How's it going today, Michael?
It's going wonderful, thank you.
Great to hear it. So how long exactly have you been a Whiteglove host?
I first met Natalie Grassi June of 2017.
Nice, very nice. A few years now. And so, you're chugging along, and I understand obviously prior to the pandemic, you were really filling your pipeline with seminars. So once the pandemic hit in March and you realized that seminars were going to have to go on a little bit of a halt for a while, what were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Well, I had a workshop scheduled, I believe it was March 17th in Alma with an advisor by the name of Ron Mills. And then the shutdown occurred, and so Whiteglove reached out to me and asked me if we wanted to go virtual. He didn't want to, and this was all pretty new to him anyway. And so he didn't want to do it, but I said, yeah, let's do it, And so we had one early in April, I believe.
How did that first one go?
We got great attendance. I think, and I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think we did well because I had a 40-person mark, and we hit that mark like 4 or 5 days before the event, which surprised even you guys. So we pivoted and then said, let's take everybody that registers. And so I think at the end of the day, we got about 52 people registered. And I believe we got about 29 attended.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So, and then needless to say, the conventional wisdom was get back with these people the next day. And since then, that's changed to get off the webinar and get on the phone right away. So that's the big change in 3 months from, the beginning of April till now, is just to get off the virtual webinar, virtual workshop, and contact the people.
So would you say that's kind of been like your best practice so far? Are there any other things that you've been experimenting with that have helped take those results to the next level?
Yes. I belong to the National Network of Estate Planning Attorneys, nationwide group, and it's really advanced estate planning. But I felt all along, and they've been involved in with Whiteglove as well. Several of the members there have been involved with Whiteglove, and I just felt it's too advanced for the general person that wants to come in and learn a little bit about estate planning. So I don't want to say I dummy it down, but I make it really easy and explainable, and I think that that's the key.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I hate it when I go to a doctor and they start talking in their own language, and it's just like, can you just tell me that I'm going to be okay? I think that's what a lot of people want when they come to those events. So, You mentioned that you dove in right away. You wanted to start dabbling, but another one of your colleagues, he wasn't quite ready. And so obviously you could have picked a variety of different partners to host this webinar with. So would you care to share why you chose us?
Sorry, I was chewing on ice.
That's okay. I do that too.
Well, are you talking about virtual or before the workshop?
Yeah, virtual. Went back in March. So, you could have picked anybody else, but you picked Whiteglove.
Well, like I said, I already had one scheduled with you guys, but I had done probably 4 workshops with Mason Goris and about 3 or 4 with Brandon and Moore. I kind of lost his name for a second there. So And I've done a couple on my own, and I did one with Greg Dolinsky. So I was in the white glove mode. So it wasn't too difficult. Well, there wasn't even a decision not to use you guys.
We appreciate it, and so you mentioned that you've partnered with quite a few different advisors to host seminars before. Why is that exactly? What are some of the overall benefits of partnering with an attorney? I mean, with an advisor to host an event?
Well, the biggest one is the cost. But secondly, I feel that a good advisor can sense what the crowd, what kind of information they're looking for. And sometimes as a speaker, I have tunnel vision, and all I want to do is get to the next slide. And so the advisors, they can read the crowd and see if a slide comes up and all of a sudden the crowds turn into each other and talking to each other, they can slow it down, and they can pinpoint, I believe, what the crowd, what the attendees are looking for.
Absolutely.
And then another major reason why is they bring value to the program. It's just not an attorney up there. It's a financial advisor. And I always like to say that people get 2 for 1, but it's really 2 for none, because they're not paying, to go to the virtual webinar or even the workshops when we did them in person. So they can come in with an estate planning question, but then have a financial planning question answered. And that's what I think draws, a great value to the program.
100%, 2 minds are better than one. And I'm sure when that happens, attendees sometimes will walk away with answered questions that they didn't even realize that they had. So, you have obviously hosted some webinars before. I think you mentioned 4, correct, so far? All right.
I think so.
All right, awesome. So you kind of navigating it pretty well. And I know recently in our casual meeting series, Beers and Best Practices, you mentioned that you'd be interested in potentially partnering up with an advisor to host a webinar. So how do you think some of those added benefits from seminars kind of translate over to webinars?
Well, let's go back to the beers and best practices. So let's backtrack. Literally the day before, I met and befriended Dean Thurman Sr. a couple of years ago at a white glove function at the Heckerling conference in Florida, which is all about estate planning. And Dean Sr. and I have become friends. And so he'll pick up the phone, especially during the pandemic, once every 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll catch up. And so the day before one of the beers and best practices, he called, we were talking, he was talking to me about a good friend of his in Florida, high net worth individual. And half jokingly, I said, I need to meet him. And he said, why? I go, because I want to rewrite his trust. And he goes, that's right, you're licensed in Florida. And I said, yeah, also in New York and a couple other states. And he goes, have you thought about doing a virtual webinar in any of those? And the light just went on. I said, no. And I said, I'm going to call Natalie when we get off the phone. And I did. And so I ran that by her 11 o'clock that night. And 11 o'clock that night, she sent me the demographics for Naples, Florida, West Palm Beach, Florida, and the Hamptons, New York. The next day was one of your beers and best practices I was supposed to be on, but I had a client emergency. So I was driving from Mount Pleasant to Grand Rapids, so I could only be on the line. We had some technical difficulties because I was in my car, but when I finally got through, the question was raised just like yours about doing it in other states. And I said, yeah, since we're at my desk anyway, it doesn't matter where it's being beamed into. So I said, yeah, I'd love to do some in Florida. And just before that, Mason and Brandon were on the program saying that they were licensed now in 50 states as advisors. So I said, yeah, I definitely would do that with Mason and Brandon in Florida and also the Hamptons. And I'm still on the call, still on the beers and best practices, and my cell phone is blowing up, but I'm in my car. So I'm going, who's blowing up my phone? So finally, I was muted anyway, so I look at it, it was this advisor from the Hamptons wanting to do a webinar with me, and I was still on the phone with you guys. So that was the greatest thing in the world.
I love that story. Yeah, I was sitting in on that one, and I remember Laura saying, you know, Michael's juggling all these different things, but he's still going to come in. And then you came up, and it was just like, man, that was, you know, I think she said, you know, fishing in the right pond, or, you know, smart fisherman. Yeah, she's good with her analogies. And, you know, so that kind of brings me to my next point. So up until, you know, the pandemic, we weren't doing webinars. And as far as seminars, a best practice that we always shared with our advisors and attorneys was to just partner up with each other. You know, although we weren't necessarily matching people up at the time, that was something we always encouraged people to do. And then once we transitioned to webinars, you know, we realized, you know, there's so much potential. You know, we're not limited by geography now. It's a safe alternative during these crazy times. And so really, attorneys like you and the advisors who have been out doing these partnerships are really what inspired our latest service, which is called AdvisorMatch. You know, it's exactly what it sounds like. So it's going to pair attorneys and advisors up really based on whatever they want. So, you know, when seminars come back to normal, there can be an advisor and attorney who decide to partner together to just do it locally, you know, just go down the road and host at their local venue. But then also, you know, like you said, you're partnering up with someone in the Hamptons. You know, California advisors can partner up with a New York attorney. And, you know, it was just kind of a no-brainer to make this happen, you know, and it's brand new. And so for all of you watching right now, we'll be rolling out some new information on that soon. But in the meantime, be sure to contact us, and all of the contact information listed down below in the description. So I'll get off my plug with that, but it's just something that we're really excited about, especially just after seeing all your success, Michael, with it. It's just really a no-brainer. So given all that information, how many events do you have on the books with advisors coming up?
I have 2 in Florida, one with Brandon and one with Mason. I think that's August 19th. We have the one in the Hamptons, but we're waiting for the brokerage firm, which is a big wirehouse, the compliance department, to give us their blessing. And so we're going to do 2 in the Hamptons. That individual, that advisor, Paul Hansen, lives in New Jersey, but has a second home in the Hamptons. So we'll probably go back to New Jersey. When he goes back to New Jersey, we'll probably do, I don't know, I'm not licensed in there, but New Jersey is so close to New York City, so everything is possible. So if there's any advisors out there in Washington, D.C. area, I'm also licensed there, and I'm definitely going to do something there as well. It's really cool because attorneys, if you're multi-state jurisdiction, you can just cherry pick cities. And the beauty of it is this is still new, and certain areas aren't saturated yet with estate planning or, you know, the other type of seminars that you guys offer. And it just opened up a whole new area. It's like before the pandemic, I moved to a different state, and, you know, I'm going to set up shop. So it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, that's excellent. So obviously, in order to market to those areas, you do have to be licensed. So can you kind of give me just a brief idea of what that licensing process is like for any attorneys who are curious about getting licensed in other states?
Well, depending on the state, it can be real easy, or it can be the biggest pain in the ass in the world.
Of course.
Can I say that on the air?
Of course.
So I've been practicing for 35 years. About 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I represented a publicly traded company out of Naples. I was in court a lot. The judge said, there's such a thing called pro hoc vice, which means that you can practice in my court a one-time only as an out-of-state attorney. After my 4th case there, the judge said that he saw me more than attorneys who practiced around the corner So I had to get licensed. In the border states, the water states we like to call them, California, Texas, Florida, you actually have to sit for the bar exam. So 25 years after practicing law, I had to take the bar exam in Florida. That was a real pain.
What a joy.
Yeah. So New York, I found out that if you're licensed in Washington, D.C., you can, reciprocity into New York. So I found that all you had to do was apply to Washington, D.C., got that license, filed the application for New York, got into New York, and then the same thing with Ohio. So that's my journey.
A domino effect.
Yes. So for attorneys out there, you kind of see where do you live, the surrounding states. You contact the local bar, the state bar associations. They help you through it.
100%. And I know a big one, aside from the information that you just shared, a big motivator for really anybody trying to grow their business is what are those results looking like? So you posted 4 webinars, so ballpark and you posted that many so far. So out of all of those webinars, how many people signed up on average per webinar, would you say?
On an average per webinar, probably 3 to 5 meetings, resulting in, let's say if there were 5, we usually convert, I would have to say we're 80% converting clients that come to the meetings. And when I say we, the way that I do it with the advisor, I meet at the advisor's office with the client. And even if the client, and the beauty of it is Mason and Brandon and I, we have a little, the way it works is we set up the meeting, we have the clients bring in some of their financials. So they come in, they give they put the financials down, I shoot them to Mason or Brandon, they're kind of leafing through it, and I start asking them some just general basic estate planning questions. So the guys, the advisors can go through the financial statements to see what type of investments these people have, what kind of IRAs they have, what kind of insurance policies they have, and figure a way how they can bring value to those people while I'm asking questions about on the estate end. So it's a pretty good, process that we have.
100%. And I know that the attorneys listening to this video, they are going to eat that up because you're just, you're really laying out the blueprints for your success and your process that's been heavily ironed out at this point. So of those webinars, did you get any clients from those appointments?
I would have to say yes. I think, like I said, I think we're at 80% of the client meetings are converted into clients. Okay. And I would have to say, all but 1 or 2, we've both, the advisor and I, have gotten clients. 1 or 2, the clients have chosen to go a different route with an attorney, but stay with the advisor. Other times they're happy with their advisor, and so they just do an estate plan. But the advisors always try and trickle information to those people to continue to possibly get them as clients. And that's another key issue, not a key issue, it's a key point, is the trickling effect of just bringing value to people who either aren't your clients yet or are fence sitting. You got to figure a way to just bring information to them. And I'm not really a shy guy, but I'm not a pushy guy when it comes to getting new clients. So I kind of take a back off approach. So it was really hard at first to call people right away, but that was the success, and that's what everybody said to do, and I did, and it worked. But with the trickle, I'm still trickling people that we did workshops in person back in September. And those people that showed interest that aren't clients, I'll just send them something, estate planning in the pandemic, just a quick little thing just to have them know that I'm thinking of them, and hopefully, and those convert. I mean, Brandon and we have a meeting, I think in a couple of weeks or next week, that we met with a person at a workshop in September, and they didn't want to do anything. And here they are now, in August, almost a year later. And so the one advice is one of the guys from the national network said, when you do your Whiteglove workshop, it's just not one day. It's a great lead, and that's what you paid for, was the contact, but it's a good lead. And because you can't convert it the first day, week, month, I always say, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. You know what you're doing, and that's, no, people aren't static. People's situations change, people's interests change, they learn things. I mean, the headlines just in the last few months alone. I know I've been talking to my people, getting my things in order. So obviously anyone listening to this, you're talking about your process, talking about the results, but, I know success criteria looks different for an attorney than it does for an advisor. That's just facts of it. So would you mind sharing the asset size that those webinars managed to bring in for you in these last few months?
I would have to say it's always kind of funny when the people hand their financials over to the guys. We don't have that much money, and just last week, Mason and I were on a call, and the person says we don't have that much, and they had, hold on one second, the person had $300,000 in an IRA. They had 2 cars. They had an investment account at Fidelity. They had 3 life insurance policies. And they had an individual stock account of CMS Energy at $15,000. And, we don't have that much. At the end of the day, that's almost $700,000, but they were meek and, not ashamed, but, we don't have that much. But that is a typical person. They got a couple $100,000 in IRAs. They got another investment account, maybe, a house, maybe 2. And that's a real typical client, at about, hovering between $350,000 and $600,000 on the average.
That's huge. And, that's another thing that speaks to webinars, is because a lot of those people they just weren't really open to going to an in-person venue. That's kind of a pain for a lot of people. Other people are totally for it, but, it's just broadening that up. But I mean, you shared more than enough information that I even was going to ask today, and all of it, I've just been soaking it up like a sponge. I really, really appreciate that. So is there anything else that you would care to share before we wrap this up?
Like I've always said, I always used to say that the gold in the Whiteglove workshops was the no-shows, because you paid for butts in the seats back in the old times when we had in-person. You paid for the butts in the seats, but Whiteglove gave you the people who registered. And that's where I found great success, was the people who no-showed. Now with the virtual, you have the same, you have your different options, the payment options, but you still get to have all that contact. And it's just great. And what we're going to start doing is, before the actual virtual webinar, we're going to reach out to people saying, we understand you registered, here's something to look at before you go. And what I like about the virtual is, like the no-shows back in person, a rainy day, a snowy day had a huge effect. The weather is no longer a problem with virtual workshops. And that's a great thing.
It's huge. Really just depends on the internet.
Yeah, I'll probably do more virtual going forward, probably a 70-30 split once we get out of this, stay-at-home stuff. But I like the options much more with the virtual.
That's excellent. I've been hearing that a lot. There have even been some advisors who have said, I like this so much, I'm not going to go back to in-person seminars. You know, I like where I'm living now, but I don't want to stay here forever. So why uproot my practice when I can just take it virtual? And, you know, that's a really exciting thing. You know, we're all kind of figuring this out together, and that we really can do things remote. So, you know, again, I can't thank you enough for joining me today, Michael, sharing so much valuable information. And I'm excited for you. I hope that webinars keep being fruitful for you. And, you know, thanks again for also lending your crazy schedule to us in Beers and Best Practices. And so, you know, we've mentioned that a lot. So for anyone watching, Beers and Best Practices is our monthly real casual learning space. It's peer-to-peer learning where, you know, Whiteglove leadership just invites advisors and attorneys on board, where they just have a couple of drinks and just talk about what's working, what's not, what they're liking. But, you know, we found that this has become such a trove, we're actually going to lump it into Whiteglove University, which I have linked down in the description below if you'd like to learn more. And of course, just reach out at the contact information listed below. But you know, I'll hop off my soapbox and let you get back to your busy day. So thank you again, Michael. I hope you take care.
All right, bye now.
All right, bye-bye.